overlooking the beautiful bay of Port Susan, looking towards Mount Baker. So today we continue with the original lessons of Paramahansa Yogananda, taking our cue from lesson 12 of the Advanced Course in Practical Metaphysics, the topic of which is awakening of Kundalini, or serpent force. Turns out that though I didn't know what today's topic was yesterday, it turns out that this is really a continuation of the spiritualizing of sex force, which we discussed, interestingly enough, yesterday. But as yesterday, I'm going to play Paramahansa Yogananda's words that I think you will enjoy.
You must keep your appointment with God. In the morning, at night. And whenever others are playing around, wasting time, this and that, you can make 1,000 rules, and 1,000 rules people will break if they don't want to follow them. But those who want to follow them, I remember once in the hermitage in Puri, these boys used to meditate with me, always giggling, when I was deeply going in. I one day shouted so bad. They shook like this. He says, "Don't be holy, don't be so holy." I said, "What do you mean by holy? You are not meditating or giggling." He said, "Oh, Master works as hard and we feel sleepy." I said, "But when he gives you food, I don't see you sleepy. You are so devoted. You have Jala Yoga, means you are united to food. You see, instead of Raja Yoga, united to God." I said, "Why don't you fall asleep when you are eating?" Oh, they meditated 2-3 days and started giggling again. Nobody knows them now, but I was sad, because I knew that was the purpose I went. And I did not forget my supreme purpose. If you forget him and do everything else, you will get good karma, no doubt. Every karma action that you do, only for God, not for saying that somebody will praise me, but with the desire to please God, is half meditation. But without meditation, you will not find God. Meditate deeply, don't cheat. Don't think sleep is more important. That's why in my great active life, sleeping only a few hours, years and years, as you know, that I have slept only 3 hours. But the greatest way I found is giving the first attention to God, that I never miss, day and night. Many times I have run away, and he brought me and said, "Come on, little boy, come on, come back. I am with you." So you see, when he brings you back, then you know he is with you.
I just love to hear his voice. It's so charming and yet at the same time so very deep. Well, let's talk about Kundalini. Most of you who would watch the broadcast like this have no need to be educated on what Kundalini is. But I will call your attention to a sentence in Swami Kriyananda's landmark course, Raja Yoga. And he defines Kundalini. There's a sentence in there in step 13 or 14 in which he defines Kundalini as the entrenched vitality of our mortal delusion. Again, entrenched vitality of our mortal delusion. What he means by that is Kundalini, the whole subject of Kundalini in the yoga treatises and Hinduism and the esoterica of the East, is wrapped in a great deal of mystery and symbolism. But what he means by the entrenched vitality of our mortal delusion really cuts to the chase, cuts to the quick, from the standpoint of how our modern minds think, which is more intellectually rather than pictorially through stories and symbols, is that our existence is based, the fact that we've incarnated into human form is based on our commitment, our existential commitment to our ego, to our beingness as being separate from all other things, what to mention God, our Creator. And so the primary and the fundamental life urge, apart from all the other myriad desires which we might possess, desires and fears, but the fundamental existential urge is that urge or that hypnosis, that delusion that we are separate from all other objects in creation. And so that's a wonderful definition. But when you dial that back to its origins in, I'll just say, India, you really get a different picture. For example, Yogananda in this lesson 12 tries to explain why Kundalini is depicted as a serpent by the nature of what serpents are. He says, the serpent lies subtly hidden in caves and openings in the ground, and it's powerful with its fangs and poison, and can only be tamed by those who know how to charm it. Well, one of the great images of India from the past in the West is that as a land of snake charmers. And yet, you know, the symbolism of the snake runs very deep in human consciousness, far deeper than I think I can voice or give expression to. You know, snakes are hard to see, they're unseen, they represent power and yet subtlety because they are unseen. You don't know when they're going to strike you, you don't see them. Well, in that analogy, what he's saying is that this is like unto the subtle life force in the body as opposed to a corpse. You know, what is it that gives us life? What is that subtle power of perception that enables the five senses to achieve such incredible heights of delicacy and discernment? Then he quotes a very famous statement, I assume it's in the words of Jesus, who said, Moses lifted up this serpent in the wilderness. Remember the story in Numbers in the Old Testament where the Israelites wandering around for 40 years in that little chunk of land? They couldn't be that dumb, but anyway, 40 years, and they were getting bitten by snakes, serpents, right? Well, okay, deserts seem to have serpents, I guess. And so God told Moses to make a pole of brass and place thereon a brass serpent, and whosoever would look upon it would be cured from the snake bite. Well, golly, what do you do with something as dumb as that? Well, Yogananda gave the mystical yogic interpretation, saying that the brass pole represents the spine, and making the brass serpent and lifting it up is to raise the Kundalini energy, which is said to be in a deep coiled passageway at the base of the spine, representing the negative pole, of which the soul at the top of the head is the positive pole. And to raise the Kundalini is to awaken this powerful life force that is our existential fundamentalists, and raise that energy up to the brain. And so it was a symbol, number one, that Moses himself was a master, having been able to do that. But also as it relates to spiritualizing the sex force, it is, as I said yesterday, part of the process or teaching in yoga instruction to lift the energy in the lower centers, the Muladhara, Svadhisthana, and the Manipur chakra, the three lower centers, and raise that Kundalini past those, because if Kundalini awakens and stimulates those centers, what happens is that the sex nerves get stimulated and aroused. Okay, so he does point out, though, that just to do this once or as a technique is not enough. To permanently cause the outgoing force of Kundalini to flow to the brain requires much deeper, longer, guru-given meditation. But this is the only way to transmute the sex force permanently, is to raise it to the brain. Now, okay, then he talks about something very interesting, but very obliquely. It's amazing that in 1926 he would write such things, but he says that Kundalini moving brainwards and helped by the union of nerves at the tip of the tongue and the little tongue, meaning the uvula. You touch those together, actually it's much more complex than that. But this Kechare Mudra, as it's called in India, is really the higher level of raising the Kundalini. And it produces, he says here, the secretion of nectar and the union of energies, positive and negative, the big tongue, little tongue, does not involve any loss of fluid or energy as it does in the act of sexual union, but it brings immense spiritual realization. This technique of placing the tongue behind the uvula and up into the subtle nerves passages is one of the highest techniques of yoga, taught by Lahiri Mahashaya as part of Kriya Yoga, and is said to be extremely powerful for raising the Kundalini. Okay. He goes on to list the different chakras, but all of you know them. Well, he gives the English words coccygeal, I can never say that word, sacral, lumbar, dorsal, cervical. He doesn't mention the sixth chakra or the seventh, curiously enough. But, this technique or this process of raising Kundalini is actually a mechanical way of saying the spiritual path, as one of our Ananda teachers put it now famously many decades ago. The spiritual path is 3.5 feet long from the base. I don't know if that's 3.5 feet, but maybe he's pretty tall, the fellow who said this. So from the base of the vertebrae all the way to the spiritual eye, or actually to the cranium, is about 3.5 feet long. Every saint, they don't have to be a yogi, they don't have to know anything about Kundalini, but every soul that achieves emancipation goes through the same process. This is the one and universal spiritual path by which we raise the energy, the life force, the Kundalini force, the sex force, whatever. That, in other words, which has given us life in the human form, human body. We raise that energy and offer it back to the Creator, offer it back to God with love and devotion. Only the pure of heart can really raise the Kundalini. Only the pure of heart can slay the dragon of delusion that resides at the base of the spine, representing the entrenched vitality of our mortal delusion. Okay, that's all I got to say today. And tomorrow you'll have Padma. I don't recall what her topic is. You just have to tune in to find out. Okay.